I, 27F, get incredibly annoyed while visiting parents and feel sad/guilty about it. I live far away from my parents, mid-60s, and my sister, twin, lives in the same state/is able to see them more frequently, therefore have a stronger recent connection. I went low contact for a while last year because I was treated poorly while helping out when my dad fell ill. He's totally okay now, then discarded when I needed their support the most due to unrelated mental health stuff. It was very sad but 100% what I had to do. I eventually resumed contact around the holidays last year after a lot of space and tons of therapy. They perhaps began to wonder why I was low contact and tried to start engaging me. They hadn't shown interest in my new relationship, but invited me to bring my boyfriend, a big step. They ended up really liking him, which felt pretty symbolic. Since then it has been much better. Not always been perfect, but I love and care about them so much and try to cut as much slack as possible because they won't be around forever. My dad getting sick last year was a huge reminder of that. I didn't see them for 10 months, mostly due to COVID, which made me sad from time to time. Tried not to dwell on it as a lot of people are dealing with the same thing, and at least my parents are really cautious/healthy. I finally ended up visiting and felt immediate relief, but the annoyance immediately set in. Whether it was things like nagging me for not eating a proper lunch, basically raving about/comparing to my sister/their friends' kids the entire time, insinuating my changing plans on me at the very last minute, and suggesting I'm hypersensitive for not wanting to discuss a relative who said some very horrible shit to me while growing up. When these types of things happen I will get super annoyed, conceal irritability, then find the reason to step out of the room, then end up bawling for about 10 minutes because I let myself get annoyed about these things when the reality is that they won't be around too much longer, and they are overall loving and affectionate people in spite of the hurtful actions. If this is a one-off thing then it would be manageable, but it tends to recur multiple times during the visit. My boyfriend suggested that I try to make more frequent trips that are shorter in duration so that I see them more consistently, reducing guilty, but decreasing opportunity for extended frustration. I'm wondering if I'm the only person who, even as an adult child, feels these overwhelming conflicting feelings of frustration, sadness and guilt about parents' imminent mortality. Any insight would be appreciated. Too long didn't read. I've had a stressful relationship with my parents for the past year. Things are going back to normal but I get very annoyed while visiting, then feel very guilty. I don't think anything you are feeling here is that irrational or unusual, and no, I don't think you are the only person who feels this way. Having one foot in the grave is not an excuse to treat other people poorly. It's basic social etiquette to respect another person's feelings. Your parents are still not respecting you and there is no excuse for that. It isn't that hard to treat people well. There isn't really an excuse for your parents' behavior, particularly as they appear to be mentally sound. Family is complicated, and I agree that it can be helpful to have a forgiving attitude and that not everyone is perfect all the time. But why are they insulting you multiple times in one visit to the point that you are left in tears? I think your boyfriend is right in that you need to find a way to cope with interacting with your parents, while still respecting yourself. If that means reduced contact, you can't allow guilt or social pressure to overwhelm you. I'm wondering if you're still carrying the pain from how you were treated during/after your dad's illness. That would cause serious resentment for anyone, and I can imagine that it would still affect your relationship, especially if they didn't apologize. Also, it feels like there's parts of family history you left out. Here's why. The people I've met who assure me that their parents are lovely in spite of this hurtful thing they did, like you assure us, are often people who come from dysfunctional households. The behaviors you describe are all small things that make you feel unreasonable for getting upset. And yes, they are small things, but the picture they're part of is enormous. You're not reacting just to the insensitive remark/henpecking criticism, you're, potentially, reacting to almost 30 years of the same exhausting treatment. I don't doubt that your parents love you, and that you love them. You wouldn't be making this post if you didn't. It's completely understandable that you want to be near them, especially at this stage of life. I think, if you want that, it's worth researching dysfunctional family dynamics and how to navigate those in a less painful and more effective way. Edit, a word. I will get super annoyed, conceal irritability, then find a reason to step out of the room, then end up bawling for about 10 minutes. Something is going wrong. Your annoyance is normal, but your reaction to them seems over the top. Your coping strategy of hiding your irritability isn't sustainable. Maybe it would help to vent out some of your frustration by saying something like, "This topic is painful for me, let's agree to disagree. I came to visit because I want us to build more good memories together." Like, discuss pleasant thing you can do together, changing the subject. I totally understand, and this sounds all too familiar. The cycle of anger guilt really wears you down emotionally and hurts inside. I am sorry I don't have much advice, just to remember that you are your number one priority, so try and protect yourself emotionally however you can. If that means shorter visits or less frequent visits, don't feel guilty. You are putting yourself first. Your parents can't see the harm they are causing, but on some level they want you to be happy, and even if they don't understand how they affect you, self-preservation will give you the chance to be a bit happier. You don't need to justify to anyone any boundaries you decide to set. Protect yourself. Choose yourself. Almost 30 and I struggle a lot with my parents. Each thing they say seems little but add up to a whole stack. My older brother commented once that I need my own communication team to speak with them because both ends always end up frustrated. I haven't seen them in 2 years at this point, though we video chat, less than they would like, and text. The last time I saw them we had a huge blow up about their behavior and how they treat me that had built up for years. The only way I have learned to accept them and be willing to see them again is that everything they say slides off my back. Don't give them much information about my life so they can't compare. Grey rock. Tell myself nothing they say has any meaning or depth for me. They are just saying words. If they say something inappropriate, I make a point to say that that is unacceptable and then move on. I honestly treat them like children. When they misbehave, I shut them down. When they act in a positive way, I am more willing to talk to them. To be fair, this hasn't been tested early. I just know they won't change in any great meaningful way. They're too old and too set in their ways and refuse to see fault in the way they treat me. If you want a relationship, you will have to take the annoyance as part of it. If they are insulting mind, do not take that. Have respect for yourself. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. The man, 35M, I just started dating, just found out he has a serious case of cancer. How do I, 28F, be there for him, if at all? Hi, everyone. I met John, fake name, obviously, recently, and turns out, he's from my hometown and we actually have quite a few people in common. Mainly through a former best friend of mine who I no longer speak to. Not that this matters at all, but he's not just a random man from the internet is what I am trying to convey. We had been talking for a few days before deciding to meet up and casually mentioned a surgery he recently had. It seemed like he did not want to talk about it, so I didn't press, but I could tell it was somewhat serious. Eventually, he came right out and told me that he had a cancerous tumor, but he didn't seem worried. He's always upbeat and cracking jokes, and assured me he thinks it would only require a few rounds of radiation and he should be fine, so I took his word for it. The night before we had a day trip planned, we were chatting on the phone and he laid it on me, that it looks like the cancer is more serious than he had anticipated and he would not fault me at all if I wanted to hit pause and continue when things turned around. Honestly, I was pretty drunk and I can't remember what I said exactly when he told me, but I had mentally and emotionally prepared for it, and it was never even a thought to not be his friend and be present in his life, no matter the circumstances or how bad it is. Day trip goes amazing. He was a total gentleman and it's obvious there's serious feelings developing here and something we both want to pursue. I invited him over to cook together and make drinks one night last week, and he sat me down and laid down the bad news, that he did some testing and that it wasn't looking good. It's worse than everyone initially thought and he had to start chemo right away. I was absolutely gutted, but not an emotional person in general, and he was still cracking cracking jokes and being his normal self. I love that part of him so much. But anyway, I asked what role he wants me to take and what he wants this to look like, meaning I wanted him to tell me what was his ideal situation regarding me and whether he just wants someone to comfort him, whether he still wants to date, etc. I don't know. But he told me he was making the executive decision for both of us to not date, as he won't be well enough to do or feel anything. I was fine with this, but wanted direction as to what type of role he would like me take, as I still had every intention of being in his life, romantically or not. Maybe that was unfair of me to ask, but I truly did not know what to say, but tried to reassure him that I will be whatever he needs me to be during this. He seemed to not want to talk about it and insisted I sleep on it. I'm not sure if he thought I was making a dumb decision or he was trying to protect me, himself or both of us, but my mind was made up. I was not going anywhere. I spent the next 2 days crying constantly, more than I've cried over anyone in years. He asked me to get some testing done. I just got over being sick, to make sure he would be good for chemo, and we chatted about it while I cried and he would ask if I was okay. Of course I'm sad I finally found someone I really enjoy being around and he's sick, but I'm absolutely devastated for him. He's such an amazing person, a bleeding heart, and does not deserve this. So anyway, I went back to our hometown for unrelated reasons but planned to stay longer to see him and comfort him. I offered to come over and see him and we made tentative plans for tomorrow, but he seems to slowly be fading from me. He's still answering texts when I do reach out. I never reach out in a normal dating situation, but the conversation is very brief and then he stops answering while he is still looking at my stories. Example, he was complaining about the long commute to the testing sites and I offered to come along if he needs a road trip buddy and he did not answer. To change the subject and not talk about the cancer, I followed up with a brand new headshot I just got taken to ask what his thoughts were. No answer. He seems to not want anything to do with me anymore, which I want to respect, but it also seems cruel to stop reaching out to him to see how he's doing. I guess his mind is probably in a million different places right now and he's facing the idea of death, but I want to reiterate that I know we cannot be anything romantic and I'm fine with it. I just want to be a source of positivity and comfort and be what I would want him to be for me if the roles were reversed. What do I do here? Any advice is thoroughly appreciated. Too long didn't read. Man I was dating briefly, just found out he has cancer. Not sure what I should be doing / not doing. He seems to be distancing himself, so take the cue from him. It may be worth thinking about why you're so keen on volunteering to be there in any capacity. Is it because you feel a certain kind of guilt or obligation to stay for yourself? You may think you have good intentions, but for him it may not be. Another thing he wants to think about / deal with at this point in time. You let him go. He doesn't have space for you right now. It sounds like he doesn't have the bandwidth to have you in his life while he might be dying. Listen to what he's telling you with his words and his actions. He really likes you and in no other situation would absolutely want to date you. Since he can't be present for you while he's sick and you two don't know each other well, he'd rather disconnect. It sounds like, if he lives, he'll still want to date once he's done with treatment. Sometimes being supportive means doing what the other person needs. Oof, this is hard. You have only just gotten to know this man, so it's hard to give tailored advice. I think it's really good you asked him what he wants. That's something you can always do. For example, hey, I noticed you left some messages on read. Do you prefer to message less or call instead? Have time to yourself. I'm here if you want to hang out or talk. If he keeps his distance, just let him be for a while before reaching out again. Give him some time to figure out what he needs. I imagine he does appreciate you reaching out, even if he doesn't really know what to do right now. Smile. Sorry to hear about this, sucks for him and you. I, 25, am tired of my BF, 30, asking me to change. Is it the end? My boyfriend of 4, almost 5 years, is kind, intelligent, and ambitious. He generally doesn't want me to change in ways that seem unreasonable, become better at communicating, eat healthy and exercise, choose what he wants to do sometimes, rely on people for once, etc. I like to think I'm a good person. I tried to help my community in all the ways I can and I'm very self-reliant, but this relationship makes me feel like I can never do enough, that I might never be enough. I'm not sure if it's me being incredibly hard on myself because I don't take criticism well and I'm not super great in social situations, but I've been really struggling to see how I can make the relationship better. We've been doing couples and individual counseling for most of the year and I'm just tired. I'm tired of working on myself and still being found wanting. I don't seem sincere when/if I apologize. I don't help around the house enough. I don't let him give me advice. I wanted a dog and wasn't honest with him about how much work it took to own one. I don't show my emotions. My sister's hatred of me makes him feel uncomfortable. I'm from a very dysfunctional family and I know never being loved in a healthy way has given me a slower start on learning to love in a healthy way, but whatever energy and inspiration I had to learn has now waned. I entered this relationship after learning how to love myself and I don't think I even have that anymore. He's not a bad person, he's one of the best I've met. I just don't know what to think about myself or this relationship anymore. I feel like I'm running out of time to change either way. Any advice? I'd love to be the person he wants/needs, an emotive person who isn't frustrated or anxious a lot and takes his advice more, but I don't know if I have it in me. Too long didn't read. Great boyfriend, but lots of requests to change makes me think this relationship is over. I don't want it to be, but I don't know if I have the energy or inspiration to change that. You're only 25 and exhausted after a year of couples counseling. How much more obvious could it get that this relationship is wrong for you? Please don't waste any more your time. What does rely on people for once entail? Specifically, being self-reliant can be a good thing, and if he wants you to be more dependent on him, that isn't necessarily healthy. I'd also love to hear more about changes he himself is willing to make for the relationship, or does he just expect you to put work in? You can date a wonderful person. I'm not sold on the idea that he's wonderful, and still not be compatible with them. All at the very least are not compatible. It's okay to say this isn't working out for us and we should put this energy towards finding other people or not. I think it's okay when you love someone to encourage some small improvements, especially if you feel like they have so much potential. However, this sounds like way more than that. This sounds like maybe you two aren't compatible. Growth in relationships should be a two-way street. It's not fair to get with someone and then try to completely mold them to suit your definition of an ideal partner. This isn't Build a GF workshop.